Dashcam video showing the moment an unarmed man is shot by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy.
Tonight, the video exclusively obtained as part of a joint investigation between the Contact 5 investigators and the Palm Beach Post launches a revealing look at how the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office investigates its own shootings.
And how far the agency is willing to go to protect its deputies. Contact 5 investigator Katie Legrone now with a video that reveals a problematic pattern. Katie?
Kelly, this video is disturbing to watch and is now part of a lawsuit accusing the sheriff's office of unnecessary force.
In this 2013 dashcam video, Dontrell Stevens is seen talking on a phone as Deputy Adams Lynn trails him. He gets off his bike with a cell phone in his right hand, walks toward the deputy, and 4 seconds later is shot 4 times. Stevens had nothing in his hand but a cell phone.
He starts backing away from me, and as soon as he's backing away,
moments later, the deputy can be heard on the radio.
I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
Stop what you're doing and comply with us.
That day, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was on TV.
There's nothing in the rules of engagement that says we have to put our lives in jeopardy to wait to find out what this is and get killed.
But the Contact 5 investigators discovered problems.
I got your back, you know that. I know. Hey, you know that. Yeah, I know.
In a joint investigation with the Palm Beach Post, we'll show you evidence you've never seen until now.
This has gone far beyond giving law enforcement officers the benefit of the doubt.
The pattern we found inside the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office and how this dramatic scene is helping to expose it.
15 years of police shootings culminates into one explosive investigation. What stood out about the county's largest law enforcement agency and what Sheriff Rick Bradshaw is saying about it. Tonight at 11, only on News Channel 5.
This is a prime example how dangerous this job is.
And then he starts shooting and shooting and shooting and watched my son fall to the ground.
The deputy took the action that he had to take to neutralize the threat to him.
If they tell you to stop and put your hands up, you need to put your hands up, you know.
And it's the citizens' duty to submit to our authority.
So you telling me that's okay to kill him?
You only get what you deserve.
Andy Jackson lost part of his skull.
Everybody said, why are you shooting?
Jamil Murray, his life. And Dontrell Stevens will never walk again. They are among the 114 people who since 2000 have been shot at by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy.
The deputy's lucky to be alive. He was in a fight for his life.
And their cases are among more than a dozen we found exposing the failures of how Palm Beach County's largest law enforcement agency investigates shootings.
Shouldn't have started reaching. All right, like you had something.
That involve their own.
We don't expect our deputies to be assaulted. We don't expect them to have their lives placed in jeopardy.
And how far the agency is willing to go to protect them.
I got your back, you know that. I know. Hey, you know that. Yeah, I know.
Less than 8 minutes before this moment, this exclusively obtained dashcam video never seen before by the public shows Dontrell Stevens talking on a phone as Deputy Adams Lynn trails him. He gets off his bike with a cell phone in his right hand, walks toward the deputy, and 4 seconds later is shot 4 times. Stevens had nothing in his hands but a cell phone.
He starts backing away from me, and as soon as he's backing away,
moments later, the deputy can be heard on the radio.
I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
Put up your hands, stop what you're doing, and comply with us.
That day, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was on TV.
There's nothing in the rules of engagement that says we have to put our lives in jeopardy to wait to find out what this is and get killed.
Months later, investigators from the state attorney's office and PBSO ruled the shooting justified. But there was a problem.
There is no recording of any commands ever made to Dontrell Stevens.
And as soon as he's backing away, I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
The Deputy Sheriff Lynn's statements, recorded statements following this shooting, were absolutely false. Internal Affairs completely ignored that evidence. Dontrell will spend the rest of his life in a wheelchair.
Attorney Jack Scarola is suing the sheriff and deputy.
Put up your hands.
The sheriff talked about the shooting then, but won't now because of the lawsuit.
And they have something in their hands and they're going to make a move towards the deputy, they're going to defend themselves.
Our obligation in law enforcement is to conduct a complete and thorough investigation.
Dennis Root is an excessive force expert.
Well, if you just arrived on scene and 10 minutes later you're telling the media that it's a good shooting, how much of the investigation could really have been completed?
But for Sheriff Bradshaw, it's become the norm.
No question in your mind was justified then.
Well, there's no doubt in my mind the deputy did what he had to do to save his life.
That's the part, from a law enforcement perspective, that concerns me the greatest.
The individual was fooling around with his hands in the front there.
In 2009, he was on the record just hours after an off-duty deputy shot and killed 28-year-old Jamil Murray outside this West Palm Beach market.
The deputy reacted in the way that anybody else would in his position to save his life.
According to PBSO, the deputy feared Murray had a gun. It was a knife.
Everybody said, why did you shoot it?
We know from our training that somebody that's within 10 feet of you, which this was, can come over and stab you.
But he wasn't. The final report actually put Murray more than 20 feet away. And it didn't include witness statements.
You tell me to throw on the ground, let me throw on the ground. Don't shoot me first, then say you was in danger.
Including the market's bookkeeper, who also described Murray obeying the deputy's orders to put down the knife, even answering no, sir, when asked if he had a gun. The officer was cleared, the shooting justified. We found since 2000, PBSO has justified nearly all its deputy-involved shootings. And in deadly ones, the clearance rate is even higher.
Is it a red flag to you?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Palm Beach County Public Defender Carrie Hawat.
You just think on average there's got to be some mistakes that are made.
Like the mistake that left Andy Jackson scarred.
Where'd you get shot?
Right here in the forehead, right here in the middle, right here.
His is one of the few shootings PBSO flagged as a bad one. But what he did have in common with many others, he was young, black, and unarmed. We found across the board deputies are disproportionately shooting young black men who are unarmed.
We don't have the luxury to say, okay, you know what, we'd only like to go to 10 white calls today, or tomorrow we'd only like to go to 13 black calls. You know, we have to go where people call us.
With Channel 5 cameras rolling, Sheriff Bradshaw agreed to talk about findings from our joint investigation with the Palm Beach Post.
I'm not saying we don't make mistakes, and every investigation will not be perfect.
This has gone far beyond giving law enforcement officers the benefit of the doubt.
Last year, Attorney Jack Scarola petitioned the Department of Justice to investigate PBSO for what he describes as a pattern of unnecessary force, and the sheriff's swift tendency, he says, to publicly approve it.
Extremely violent struggle ensued between the suspect and the two deputies. He was trying to get their weapons. The internal affairs people and the supervisors on the scene are the ones who give me this information. So I don't believe that I'm steering this investigation one way or the other.
The sheriff stands by his policies and how his team investigates their own shootings.
The way we do things here, the way we investigate it, is a best practice. They don't leave any stone unturned.
The problem is, how do we make sure that the community knows that what they're getting is the truth?
Here we are again.
To come out and support your personnel is one thing.
We had to take this action.
But you have to remember you have a community to support as well.
He was a nice guy.
And we have an obligation to ensure that we conduct thorough and complete investigations.
He wouldn't hurt a rabbit.
Not just walk up and say, this was a good shooting.
And he didn't deserve to get shot by the police, period.
If you will comply with what the deputies are asking you to do so they can go home at the end of the day, and then if you don't like what happened, then you can complain, everybody's good. That's the system.
Sheriff Bradshaw acknowledged that reports could be more detailed, but says that wouldn't change any of the outcomes. And after we started asking questions, the sheriff announced a new policy requiring deputies report when they point a gun at someone.
This video of the shooting of an unarmed black man just seconds after he was stopped by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy is making news around the country today.
Tonight, the attorney for the man who was paralyzed in that shooting held a news conference for local and national media outlets. Contact 5 investigator Katie Legrone broke the details of the shooting. She's now here with reaction to that video.
Less than 24 hours after the Contact 5 investigators were first to show local viewers this moment, the nation now wants to know more about the shooting of Dontrell Stevens at the hands of a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy.
We don't want West Palm Beach to become another Ferguson.
Stevens' attorney, Jack Scarola, talking to a sea of media, including every major network, newspaper, all wanting to know more about this 2013 dash cam video. It shows then 20-year-old Dontrell Stevens talking on a phone as Palm Beach County Sheriff's Deputy Adams Lynn trails him. Stevens gets off his bike with a cell phone in his right hand, walks toward the deputy, and 4 seconds later is shot 4 times. Stevens had nothing in his hands but a cell phone. A few minutes later, Deputy Lynns can be heard on the radio.
I'm like, get on the ground, get on the ground.
That day, Sheriff Rick Bradshaw was on the record.
Stop what you're doing and comply with us.
But there was a problem.
There is no recording of any commands ever made to Dontrell Stevens. The Deputy Sheriff Lynn's statements, recorded statements following this shooting, were absolutely false.
There was things that he saw that alerted him to fear for his safety.
The video comes at a time when officer-involved shootings have fueled a national conversation over when officers shoot, why, and the brotherhood that seemingly so often protects them.
I got your back. You know that.
I know.
Hey, you know that.
Yeah.
Dontrell Stevens is suing the sheriff's office and the deputy over a stop that started after he allegedly impeded the flow of traffic and left him never to walk again.
He will celebrate every birthday in that wheelchair for as long as he lives.
A call for new transparency and citizen involvement.
I think the accountability, the trust is what we need to restore here in the county.
And the Palm Beach County Sheriff today announces his own reforms and new internal reviews in the wake of questions raised by our investigation into deputy-involved shootings. These calls for far greater citizen input come in the wake of Line of Fire, the joint Contact 5 Palm Beach Post investigation that revealed systemic flaws in the way PBSO investigates deputy-involved shootings.
Our team coverage on the competing calls for change begins with Contact 5 investigator Katie LeGrone live at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. Katie?
From a shooting that got the attention of the feds to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office now hiring an outside firm to review its internal policies. Sheriff Rick Bradshaw tonight clearly making changes, but saying there are no problems. Less than 2 weeks after the Contact 5 investigators and the Palm Beach Post first showed you this shooting of an unarmed man by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy, the FBI now wants to know more.
We're on board. It's a good idea. It's in everybody's best interest. And come take a look.
Sheriff Rick Bradshaw sitting down with Contact 5 investigators, but not confirming this shooting of 20-year-old Dontrell Stevens is the reason for the FBI's review.
They're the best at looking at that, right? So we want to make sure that we're doing everything exactly the way we should be doing it.
The reviews follow our investigation that discovered flaws in how PBSO investigated shootings that involve their own. We found in at least a dozen shootings over the past 15 years, PBSO either ignored or glossed over evidence and rarely held deputies accountable despite clear policy violations. The sheriff isn't acknowledging problems, but does recognize the need to keep Palm Beach County from once again making national headlines.
This needs to go way beyond any specific incident of a possible use of force.
And the FBI not commenting on any review here. Meantime, PBSO also making changes and improvements to the way deputies report when they've been involved in an incident.
The FBI is beginning its probe into the shooting by a Palm Beach County Sheriff's deputy following our investigation with the Palm Beach Post into these shootings.
Tonight, Contact 5 investigator Katie LeGrone finds out what it means when the feds get involved. Katie?
We know the FBI wants to know more about one specific shooting, and now we know when the FBI starts asking questions, it's a big deal.
If I were sitting in the ivory tower of the sheriff's office, I would be very, very concerned.
They're interested in looking at something. We said that's no problem at all.
A day after Palm Beach County Sheriff announces the FBI wants to know more about one of its shootings.
I'm really not at liberty to talk about how they're going to do, in which case they're going to do it.
We're learning more about what triggers federal scrutiny.
It has to be very egregious.
Stuart Kaplan is a Palm Beach Gardens attorney who has sued the sheriff's office for excessive force. He also spent 15 years working for the FBI.
But I can tell you that the South Florida FBI office did not make a decision to come in and start investigating the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office unless they got some indication through Department of Justice in Washington, D.C., that there may be a systemic problem here locally.
This probe comes just 2 weeks after a Contact 5 investigation with the Palm Beach Post found disturbing flaws in how PBSO investigated its own shootings, from evidence ignored to deputies rarely held accountable.
They usually generally receive a complaint or a hypothesis that there may be some misconduct, and generally speaking, whether or not that misconduct, for all intents and purposes, may be being swept under the rug, or that victims are not getting their due process.
While the FBI isn't commenting, this former special agent believes whichever shooting got their attention could be just the beginning.
They have gotten enough of a temperature to realize that where there's smoke, there must be fire.